September 25th, 2025, Atlantic Ocean. Operation Iron Retribution has already begun. NATO launches a full-scale attack on the United States. 31 allies are trying to break into the most fortified territory on Earth. It all began not with a shot, but with a fracture. After withdrawing their troops from European bases, the United States leaves NATO and cuts access to all joint systems. Satellites, reconnaissance data, global positioning systems, all are disappearing. NATO acts swiftly. The goal is not occupation, but destabilization. To destroy the command of the United States, disarm key forces, and force them to negotiate before the situation spirals out of control. To do this, one must cross 3,000 miles of ocean without American logistics, satellites, or air transport. This is the most ambitious coalition operation in modern history. Here is the twist. They know each other. They trained together for decades. Now they use that experience against each other. Yes, NATO is a defensive alliance, but it is a kind of experiment, and the line has already been crossed. I understand that this is unlikely, but I was curious to imagine how it could happen. So, let's figure it out. The task on paper is simple: to make the USA capitulate without causing mass civilian casualties. No nuclear weapons, no destruction of cities, only speed, pressure, and pinpoint strikes. NATO gives 96 hours for preparation. Evacuation protocols are activated. Troops are put on combat readiness. Entire naval groups go to sea under complete radio silence. However, it soon becomes clear that without U.S. support, NATO operates with significant limitations. As I mentioned, there is no global positioning system, at least not an American one. They are forced to rely on the European Galileo system. She is slower, easier to silence, and has never been tested in combat. It is not that they have nothing, but that what they have cannot compare to what they have just lost. There is no American satellite reconnaissance, live data from drones, or global logistics network. Much of NATO's modern weaponry, such as F-35 fighters, Black Hawk helicopters, and highly mobile artillery systems, still relies on American spare parts, software updates, and deep technical support that cannot be provided in the field. Even without American F-35 networks, NATO can still exchange data among themselves. However, they have lost the American intelligence network that unified satellites, sensors, and radars into a single picture. And without spare parts, each failure affects the fleet. Nevertheless, they continue the offensive because if they slow down, the time window will close. And they understand this. Preparation for the operation begins in Greenland, Iceland, the Azores, and Canada. Troops are being transferred to remote airfields. Cargo ships are being loaded with fuel, ammunition, armor, and other supply materials. The convoys stretched across the Atlantic, tightly packed and heavily guarded. The invasion is divided into 3 coordinated strikes. The main landing group disembarks on the coast of Virginia, targeting the Norfolk Naval Base, the largest naval base in the world. A second group attacks the Florida coast, aiming to capture the Eglin Air Base and split the U.S. coastline. The third strike moves from the north, from Canada, to Maine and Michigan, using European troops engaged in joint exercises. Convoys are forming in the Atlantic. NATO fleets, chartered tankers, and landing ships accompany wave after wave of cargo vessels. They rely on navigation using the Galileo system and scattered national satellites for gathering information. However, without American intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, their actions become less accurate. Missile strikes become less effective. Response time slows down. Coordination is deteriorating. If the situation does not resolve quickly, it will not resolve at all. Before dawn, the eastern coastline is illuminated. Winged missiles strike American air bases from Virginia to Georgia. RAF Typhoon fighters and French Rafale jets provide cover for NATO paratroopers landing on major highways. They advance after a missile strike, experiencing 30 minutes of chaos before American planes regain control of the situation. Special forces conduct a raid on an American missile site in North Dakota. Helicopters land on beaches near Norfolk. The fleet moves low and fast. The goal is to capture the port, destroy the docks, and open a corridor for subsequent armored vehicles. It's a bold move, but the USA reacts instantly. Patriot missile launchers intercept the first waves of missiles. Aegis destroyers eliminate approaching threats. F-22 Raptor fighters burst into the sky over Virginia. After several hours, the 82nd Airborne Division blocks key roads. The 100th Division departs from Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Marines from Camp Lejeune are deploying mobile anti-ship missiles along the coast. A French ship finds itself behind, vulnerable. An American submarine in the Atlantic strikes. Hundreds of soldiers never reach the shore. NATO lands on the coast but is already suffering losses. From positions deep in the country, American precision systems launch guided missiles at the landing zones. Apache helicopters destroy stranded vehicles. Coastal batteries are shelling NATO escort ships. Long-range missiles strike landing transports. Soldiers jump into the water. Armored vehicles sink before they can reach the shore. Strategic B-1 bombers taking off from the DAS Air Force Base in Texas, far beyond NATO's strike range, launch long-range anti-ship missiles at a convoy. Meanwhile, American armored vehicles are already on the move. Abrams tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, Paladin artillery systems, all moving from Georgia, Kentucky, and Texas by train. The USA is utilizing its infrastructure to the fullest. 24 hours later, heavy armored vehicles move faster than NATO drones can track them. This is the advantage of having internal lines. Defenders act quicker, engage in closer combat, and replenish supplies more easily. NATO lacks this, and it is now becoming evident. Then the cyber war begins. NATO strikes. The infrastructure of the eastern coast collapses. GPS signals are spoofed. Commercial drones are thrown off course. Power outages occur in parts of Virginia and New York. Rail networks fail. Emergency systems are flooded with false calls. The banks come to a halt. Panic quickly spreads among the people. But the USA had trained specifically for this scenario. Cyber Command isolates infected networks in just hours. Targeting data is restored through backup satellite channels. Military networks switch to secure communication lines and dark fiber, wired cables that are not easily intercepted or jammed. Then the United States retaliates. Undersea cables connecting Europe begin to fail. Galileo satellite signals deteriorate near the battlefield. NATO drone data disappears. Spy satellites stop updating information. European command centers lose contact with forward units. Target information becomes outdated. Suddenly, U.S. cruise missiles strike the very locations where NATO troops are hiding. Refueling bases explode. Artillery malfunctions during reloading. Columns get stuck in open terrain. Cyber warfare gives NATO no advantage. It hastens their downfall. But speed is not NATO's only enemy. Now the terrain turns against them. The Virginia coast is flat, swampy, and full of bottlenecks. Armored vehicles cannot maneuver. Convoys with cargo are piling up. The Appalachians form a wall to the west, forcing any advance into the country to follow predictable routes. The Midwest is completely open, but this only makes it easier for American bombers and drones to hunt down unprotected columns. Bridges explode, rivers overflow, engineers destroy roads. Meanwhile, America's road and rail system operates smoothly. Fuel, ammunition, food, everything flows into the country without delays. Troops are being transported from coast to coast in less than 72 hours. Even states like Colorado and Arizona are beginning to send units east, utilizing the untouched national network. NATO, in turn, relies on a few ports and several vulnerable convoys. Every lost ship delivers a crushing blow. Every delay accumulates. On the fourth day, American submarines begin sinking several cargo ships each night. The psychological pressure is immense. Crews abandon tankers in the middle of the ocean. The convoys scatter. Supplies are slowing to a trickle. NATO holds parts of Norfolk, several airfields in Florida, some land near the Canadian border, but they have failed to capture the deep water port. Without him, there is no possibility for replenishing supplies, no armor deliveries, no fuel shipments, only the wreckage of an airplane crashing before our eyes. The U.S. fills the interior regions with National Guard units. Brigades from Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Tennessee reinforce airfields and armored divisions. For several days, the defenders outnumber the invaders, and NATO supplies are running low. Their F-35 fighters are out of missiles which cannot be replaced. Their tanks need diesel fuel. Artillery shells are nearly exhausted, and the beach remains a bottleneck. Because the USA is not just holding the line, they are gradually exhausting the enemy. Then the counteroffensive begins. 3 full divisions, the 1st Cavalry, the 3rd Infantry, and the 1st Armored, rush towards Norfolk. The 42nd Airborne Division secures the northern flank. Marine infantry are securing the south. HIMARS systems strike at NATO's rear. Apache helicopters and TINS drones clear the remaining forces between them. This is the largest mechanized battle on U.S. soil in over a century. French Leclerc and German Leopard tanks are fighting fiercely. British paratroopers are trying to retreat to the sea, but air support is absent. Communications are jammed. Logistics are shattered. There is nowhere left to run. NATO's foothold is collapsing. Florida is falling. The northern advance retreats into Canada. Hundreds of NATO soldiers are surrounded and captured, some surrendering live on air. At sea, the aircraft carrier, Duke of Wellington, is hit by a missile. Charles de Gaulle is disabled due to a drone attack. The remaining NATO ships retreat as American submarines pursue them across the Atlantic. The war is over, and there is no doubt who won. The United States confidently controls the battlefield. NATO's invasion is collapsing under its own weight. Their dependence on American technology turns against them. Logistics fail, timing is off, and geography seals the deal. Was victory ever possible? Perhaps, but only if they had captured the port, neutralized U.S. air forces, and forced the enemy to surrender in less than a week. Instead, they lost their fleet, then their resolve, and then the war. And now imagine that the invaders are not NATO, but one of the greatest armies in history attacking a modern U.S. base. Look at this. It is now on your screen.